So I went down a rabbit hole online, and now I believe that Donald Trump is a time traveler and he's causing the Mandela effect. And I really don't know what to do with that information, so TikTok. I was looking into the Baron Trump books. If you don't know what they were written in the late 1800s and they accurately describe the Trump presidency. But the theory is, and stay with me, Nikola Tesla had been working on time travel. When he passed away, Donald Trump's uncle John was working as a lawyer at MIT. He came into possession of all of Nikola Tesla's unfinished work. And upon his death, it was passed to Donald, who then, a young Donald Trump, decided to travel into the future. And when he tried to come back, he kind of messed up the timeline or something, and used the alias John Titor, who warned of a future nuclear war. In order to gain wealth, he starts making subtle changes to the timeline, and also delays the impending nuclear war in the future. But the changes he makes causes ripples in times, which cause the Mandela effect. Now back to the books. The first book in the series is called Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, where he and the boss, or Don, on a journey to Russia to find a portal to a different dimension. There's actually a thread on 4chan that explains all of this. I'll post a link in the comments. But let's assume all of this is possible, and the Orange Man is a time traveler that's trying to save the world from nuclear war while making himself obscenely rich. For every theory I find, I try and make sure it's plausible, possible, and probable. I kind of believe that it's possible. It's also plausible. Probably not, but maybe I just don't want to live in a timeline where we have a dementia patient as a president and Donald Trump is the savior of the world. I already don't like this timeline. And if Donald Trump is a time-traveling savior, I just don't want to be here anymore. So, please disprove it. I have spent way too much time on this Baron Trump time travel conspiracy. And I made a chart. So we have the Baron Trump books that were written in the 1890s. It's a 10-year-old Baron. He goes to Russia, finds a portal. His dog's name is Bulger. In real life, there is a Baron Trump. He probably went to Russia, where he could have found time travel, possibly. And his dog's name is Patton. I know this is a stretch, but General Patton was at the Bulge. His dog's name is Bulger. 1900 or the last president. We've got a rich man named the Don, aka the boss, lives on 5th Avenue. His advisor's name is Pence. After he's elected president, riots in the streets, then his supporters riot, and then he's silenced and or censored. It's like, it's perfectly Donald J. Trump. Also, these books were written by Ingersoll Lockwood. Ingersoll is a watch company founded in 1892. Also, Lockwood is a padlock company that was founded in 1888. Probably just a coincidence, but time lock, time key, the key to time. But then we have Back to the Future movies. Start in 1985, go back to 1955, create an alternate timeline that goes to all the way to 2015, where Biff goes back to 1955, creating timeline C, which means, and in Back to the Future 2, Biff has become incredibly wealthy, owns a casino, lives in Biff Towers, and looks like the Orange Man. So then Marty and the Doc go back to 1955. But then the Doc gets sent back to 1885 and sends Marty a letter in 1955 from 1885. And the Back to the Future movies leave off in 1985 on this alternate D timeline that we have no idea how the future goes. And there's a lot more similarities, but I couldn't fit them on my goddamn board. So I guess I need to find out or figure out who the goddamn time traveler is that's fucking up the timeline. Because Back to the Future 2 sucked. I don't want to live in this timeline. I guess my real point is, whoever's fucking with the timeline, just go back and get the Doc already. Just go get him. Create D. Let's create D. If you're looking for somebody to go back, like I volunteer. I'll do it. Like, Me. I come from a long line of outlaws, gunfighters, cattle rustlers, alcoholics. In fact, I'd rather live in the 1890s. I wouldn't have to ask people what their pronoun was. Wouldn't worry about carbon emissions. I'm still not totally convinced in time travel, but if it exists, can I be the one to go back? Come on! So, my Trump time traveler theory, it's getting way out of control. Somebody told me to make a murder board. I don't have a board, I have a wall. So let's start with stuff we know is true. We've got the book The Last President, written by Ingersoll Lockwood. Yeah, and all that bullshit right there. In the 1890s. That depicts all the way to 2020, really. Now let's talk about Back to the Future for a second. Doc sends Marty a letter from 1885 to 1955, the night the clock tower got struck. Of course, there's a bunch of bullshit that happens in 1980, and then they go to 2015 to stop a robbery. So let's say that we're on that timeline. Because from 1890, we go all the way to 1940s and 50s with all the Nikola Tesla and John Trump. Then let's move to 1999, and this is verifiable that the Orange Man and JFK Jr. were friends. JFK Jr. died in 1999. And in 2016, the Orange Man is elected. That's also the year Trump Tower in Chicago got hit by lightning on his nomination night. In the movies, we've got a scientist and a kid. What if the scientist is the kid? Because look at him, and look at him. If you haven't already suspended reality, do it. So what if Nikola Tesla did invent time travel? It came into the possession of John Trump. He kept it a secret, but he also went distant into the future and brought a whole bunch of information back. Unfortunately, he died in 1955. That's ironic. He could have also shared that information with Fred Trump, who looks like George S. Patton. Or Fred could have gotten bored with his timeline and went into the future and became Julian Assange. That's probably not what happened. But what if it did? Because when Junior was assassinated, he was preparing to get heavily into politics against a certain Hillary. So what if frickin' Frack got a hold of that technology and somehow accidentally trapped Junior here, that guy, back into 1890, they couldn't find him, and he writes books. And then they use the electricity from the lightning strike to bring him back. And now what? I don't know. It has officially been a week since my original post of Donald Trump being a time traveler. If you haven't seen those, go back and watch them before you watch this. But wait, no. The sun's up, which means it's Friday. Which means it's been 8 days! But I have a theory that can kind of sum it all up. And I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's probably aliens. This will probably take 2 parts, but here's the timeline. So we've got this book published in 1890 called The Last President by Ingersoll Lockwood that accurately predict the presidency of Donald J. Trump. Then let's move to the 1940s. We've got Nikola Tesla, who may have discovered teleportation, time travel, all sorts of crazy. Now, this is all theoretical, but some people believe that Nikola Tesla is possibly a descendant of ancient aliens known as the Anunnaki. That's why he was freakishly smart and had knowledge of stuff that no other human has ever had. Ancient aliens known as the Anunnaki visited ancient Sumeria, which is modern-day Iraq. This super advanced race of aliens doesn't use spaceships, they use a Stargate or a portal that can bend space and time. See the 1994 Kurt Russell movie. Over the years, the Stargate was lost and all the knowledge was lost as well. Who knows? I mean, it's ancient Sumeria. It's at least possible. So if you're still with me, when Nikola Tesla died, all of his stuff was passed to John Trump, which is verified. It's also interesting that John Trump looks like Julian Assange. But not only John Trump has this information, but the military does as well, which brings me to the Philadelphia experiment. This is when the military experimented with teleportation, and they successfully teleported an entire battleship. However, the entire crew was fused to the hull of the ship, so I mean, successfully, kind of. There's also the CIA Project Looking Glass, which deals with like remote viewing and things like that. John Trump kept the information a secret until his death in 1985, where it was passed to DJT. That's also around the time that the Mandela effect started. So, death in 1985, which brings us to the Mandela effect after that guy gets the information. So, if you're still with me, now let's go to the Back to the Future movie. It starts in 1985. They travel back to 1955 using a bolt of lightning because their time machine needs 1.21 gigawatts. Then in number 2, they go from 1985 to 2015 to stop a robbery, which kind of correlates with, stopping the steal. But after that, it basically brings us back to 1885. Doc writes a letter to Marty in the future. So there's all the information we're working with, and there's the conspiracy wall. So if you're still with me, part 2 is coming up next. Why has it always got to be aliens? Why can't I just say it's magic? Oh, don't worry, baby birds. I'll feed you. The Donald Trump is a time traveler conspiracy, part 2. If you haven't seen the other ones, go watch them. On part 1, we left off with Back to the Future. So Back to the Future, they have a flyer that tells them the date and time that lightning will strike. Trump Tower in Chicago was also struck by lightning, and there is a tweet with the date and time. Loose correlation, but it's a correlation. And after that, we were still missing something, but if you remember, in Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, he and Don take a trip to Russia to find a portal. See, I made a line. It goes all the way up there. It says Russia portal. Okay, with all of that information, if you're still with me, do you think that if Donald Trump had this information, it would be easy for him to keep it to himself? No. He's kind of a douchebag and he's kind of a bully. He'd want to brag about it. But he can't tell anybody about it. So what if he used that technology that he's using to look into the future and figure out, what his enemies are doing, to also troll the entire world throughout the last 100 years by somehow either sending someone or sending a book or implanting the idea into this guy's head through Project Looking Glass? That creates a whole bunch of questions, but accurately describes his presidency. Also, somebody could have made that book so that if the book changes, they would know that somebody's messing with the timeline or vice versa, who knows. Then he makes this movie, or he influences this movie that has a very similar timeline to reality. It could have been for the same reason as the books, but he's a troll. That's a perfect way to troll people. We also have the Kurt Russell movie that's called Stargates. So what if he saw into the future and then left breadcrumbs for himself or trolled everybody else to remember the steps in case using the Stargate or the Looking Glass to bend time, of course, is going to create Mandela effects or butterfly effects. So if he notices a change in the movie or in the books or what have you, he'll know that somebody's messing with his reality or timeline or that. So recap, this guy got this guy's alien technology, started making little changes that created Mandela effect, possibly used the lightning strike that they knew would happen, either to send somebody back in time, maybe into the future, maybe change something, who knows. That event may have delayed the robbery to 2020 instead of 2016. And since he's got the ability to see what they're going to do, and they know he's got that ability now, he can plan ahead for something like a raid at Mar-a-Lago, where they still haven't told us what they were looking for, but they looked in his personal family safe. And if my calculations are correct, after the Supreme Court's next session, we're gonna see some serious shit. If that election is overturned because of wrongdoing, he is entitled to the rest of the 2 years of this term and to run again, and if he wins again, he becomes the second person to do that. Trust me, everything's gonna be fine. I got a theory for you today! I'm trying to get hype. I'm so over this. So I done did take down the murder wall just to put it back up. Not really. I put up the important stuff, like the books, Tesla, Mr. 45. People like that better than Orange Man. I don't care. This whole thing started because I went down a crazy rabbit hole when I found a thread from 4chan from August of 2016 that accurately called the election of 2016 and made a whole bunch of claims. But here's part of the post, or thread. Here's an interesting part. They're talking about Pence, and they're talking about Pence being a time traveler because he's got generic features and you really can't tell what racial background he is, and everybody in the future is raceless. Like, everybody's mixed so much that we're all just generic Pences. Not excited about that. But that post also claimed that Tim Kaine's wife is a time traveler as well, but for the bad, gets married to a time traveler. I mean, that's interesting, but I don't really. It doesn't give him a space on the murder wall. The video I saw last night was called Confessions of a Time Traveler, the man from 3036. So he's from 1,000 years in the future. I'm not going to get into all of his predictions. They all say the same thing. Nuclear war, famine, blackout, blah, blah, blah. We're all going to die. I don't care. Not like it matters anyway. We're all along for the ride. Just wear a helmet. But the bullet points of the documentary is this guy got caught stealing food, claims to be from the future, has no identification, has no social security number, blah, blah, blah. So the guy making the documentary decides to do 2 DNA tests, and it turns out that his bloodline doesn't even exist yet. And they have no idea what racial background he is. So there's a correlation. He's also got a chip in his left paw. You don't believe me? But he never says how he time traveled. He just says that the technology isn't available in this time. And so he's stuck here and he can't go. Let's assume he's telling the truth. And this isn't the first time it's happened. Because he says that the, military and the elites can do it whatever they want, but like the normal people can't. How do you fucking time travel by accident? Well, no, I guess mixing Molly with hallucinogens kind of does. Like what we just said, everybody in the future looks like a generic Pence. Ingersoll Lockwood kind of looks like a generic weirdo. Tesla kind of looks like a generic weirdo. Maybe they were sent back to leave some breadcrumbs, or I don't know. It really doesn't matter, because all of these conspiracy theories are pointing in the same direction. That guy's a good guy. So yeah, that guy's a good guy. And I guess that's it. Alright, everybody on TikTok wants an update about the time travel conspiracy. Fine! Do an update. Oh, I got an update for it. It's aliens. It's always been aliens. Every time, it's gonna be aliens. Alright, are you ready? Here we go. When the Anunnaki came to Earth, they genetically modified the organism that was here with their own DNA, creating what we know as humans today. So we're all descendants of aliens. But especially this guy. And then for whatever reason, they left. But if you studied religion, you know that a lot of religions are very, very similar. Could it be that the religious deities are actually the Anunnaki? I don't know, maybe. It's a freaking theory! Just stay with me! Now, if that's true, and the Catholic Church being the most powerful organization throughout most of modern history, could have suppressed this information very, very easily in order to keep tyrannical control over the entire population. Yeah, so we could have 3 different groups, or 4 different groups, fighting over this technology to assert total control over the population of the world. Maybe. Now, when I used to play Monopoly, I was a board flipper. Which, if you correlate that with the actual world, nukes. If I can't win, nobody wins. Now, remember when I was talking about John Titor? I've added him to the board. Because he went back to 1975 to get an IBM computer in order to avoid nuclear war. Now, he also said that he visited family members, and could that be JFK Jr.? I don't know, maybe. So, that might be why the Orange Man seems like he's one step ahead all the time, because he has this link to the future. Maybe. Before Werner von Braun died, he was warning of a fake alien invasion that was going to be staged in order to scare the population to assert total control. This theory has become known as Project Bluebeam. Now, I mention this because this could also correlate with the rapture event, if you know Christianity. And McAfee could have easily hacked in or stumbled upon all of this information, because we know Hillary doesn't keep her files secure. And he also said that he had 31 terabytes of information on the government. that were connected to a dead man switch. And it's interesting that the day after he was found dead, a building that he owned a penthouse in collapsed. Out of nowhere. Weird. And since he knew a lot about Ingersoll Lockwood, maybe he is Ingersoll Lockwood because he definitely knew that technology exists. But I'm pretty sure he's dead because we all saw his body. I'm pretty sure. If all of this is true, and the Rapture event is actually the Anunnaki coming back to get their descendants, they may cover that up with Project Bluebeam. And if 2020 taught us anything, they use fear to control. Hi everybody! Are you ready to go down a rabbit hole? Let's talk about conspiracies! Don't worry, I'm not gonna do Dr. Nick the whole... If you haven't seen my videos before, go check out the other ones before you check out this one because I'm gonna skip over a lot. Everything that connects to Trump, I've connected with yellow. There's also blue and green. Blue is from the movie and green is pure speculation. I'm trying to make connections with easily verifiable information from credible... So, we've got the books that connect directly to Trump. We've got Tesla. We've got his Uncle John. There's his... Fifth and number 2 is Trump. That's also the letter from 1888 is probably... The clock tower is probably Trump Tower. And this is interesting, but in number 3, Doc tells Marty that his original family name was Von Braun. So I made another little post-it with a blue little line that goes all the way up to Werner Von Braun, a member of Operation Paperclip, also one of the founders of NASA, also wrote a book about colonizing Mars where the main character's name was Elon. So there's another blue line that goes all the way to Elon. Okay, and remember, this is a time travel conspiracy. It doesn't matter what shape the Earth. In fact, it's never really mattered what shape the Earth is. And at least I don't care if there's an ice wall that surrounds Antarctica that prevents us from getting to this fucking special place. For a very simple answer. 1, it's cold. I'm not gonna go anyway. I don't care. I'm basically living in a cornfield in a cabin. And as I'm ranting, I'm realizing I'm wearing a flat Earth shirt. Such a dumbass. So these two scientists, Werner von Braun and Enrico Fermi, one started NASA, but also helped the Catholic Church and Pope Pius XII. You should probably look him up. He's pretty interesting. But they were building what's called a chronovisor, which is probably the missing piece I've been looking for because it's literally the looking glass. They can look into the past and see events. And if that exists, somebody might want to use that to figure out where somebody put some top secret documents or what's safe in Mar-a-Lago. Also, I made one more connection, but I don't know how. John McAfee. He's got to be involved in this. I just don't know how. He freaking looks like... But he's also mentioned Ingersoll Lockwood, and one of his companies is named Ingersoll Lockwood Inc. and has a website. The website's weird. There's something going on. He's involved. I don't know how. Also, if you're one of the people that is going to say that there's no way that the Catholic Church has a chronovisor, of course they denied its existence, and then they made a rule that if you use the chronovisor, then they'll excommunicate you from the church. Yeah, that's kind of like your parents saying, your Christmas presents are not in that closet. If you look in that closet, I'm going to ground you for the rest of your life. That sounds like bullshit to me. Bye, everybody! Happy September 11th, everybody. I've got an update. I had to reconfigure my conspiracy wall when I realized that I had been lied to and misled my entire life. I've always known Washington, D.C. is not a state, but I had thought it was at least owned by the United States. That would make sense, right? Nope, Google it. It's owned by the Vatican in London. And that's a giant piece of the puzzle, too, because all 3 of those cities are directly connected to my theory. Side theory for you. If Washington, D.C. is a corporation and not part of the United States, the president of the corporation wouldn't be the commander-in-chief of the military. So if there was threats of violence against the president of the corporation, he wouldn't be able to call upon the military, but he would be able to call upon the National Guard. How many National Guardsmen were at the inauguration and stayed there for like a week? In fact, where is Joey sent troops? Has he actually sent troops anywhere? But that's just a side tangent. Probably not important, don't worry. But all of these cities connect to the book somehow. So we've got the royal family that connects to John McAfee, which connects to the book, but also John F. Kennedy would connect to the books. Also, he would connect to the books, but he also connects to Washington, D.C. He also connects to the Vatican through Pope Francis. The Vatican also connects to Werner von Braun, which connects to Back to the Future, which is also connects to... But something else they all connect to is Project Bluebeam, or the Rapture. And fun little side note, In the Bible, there is an end times prophecy which says that 2 generations after Israel becomes a nation is when the rapture will occur. Israel became a nation May 14th of 1948. 2 generations is it's probably between 70 and 80 years. 75 years would be 2023, 80 years would be 2020. So we probably won't have to be wondering about this much longer. The world's gonna end and I'm gonna see. The Bible also says that there will be wars, rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes, pestilence, hatred towards other, and false prophets. There will also be a one world government and a one world currency, and the Antichrist will be revealed. Now, I didn't put check marks on those last 3 because I don't think they've happened. If you didn't know, the tribulation is supposed to last for 7 years, or it could be a mid-trib, which would be 3.5 years, rapture occurs, and then 3.5 years. So it all correlates, and it all lines up. I'll break it down for you, don't worry. If all the Abrahamic religions are actually just bastardized stories of the Anunnaki, and the royal family, and the Pope, and whoever's really controlling the United States, all know of this, and they know the Anunnaki are going to return. They've been manipulating everybody for the entirety of human history, using Project Bluebeam to cover it up and take further control over the population. Seems more and more plausible by the day. If everybody just gave up all their rights because of a cold, imagine what they're gonna do for an alien invasion. He who sacrifices liberty for security shall have neither.